Channel, I'm Plásma, and I'm not human. If the previous episode didn't make that abundantly clear. I am what people will call a creature, and what humans will probably call a monster. Not the term I'd use, but anyway, monsters have been portrayed in the media in many different ways. In this episode, we're going to be covering one of my favorite monsters and how they've evolved throughout history, the vampire. Vampires are originally based off of a historical figure known as Vlad the Impaler. While Vlad III Dracula was seen as a very great leader who successfully defended the Romanian Empire against the Ottoman Empire, he did build up quite an interesting reputation. The Impaler's impaling reputation may or may not be true, so we're not going to focus on that in this episode. However, Vlad was an inspiration for what is the inspiration for all modern day vampires. Oh yes, we're talking about Count Dracula. Dracula was, in a way, the first vampire, and many things that are associated with vampires today come from the Bram Stoker novel published in 1897. Stoker was the first to make the connection between Dracula and vampirism, taking inspiration from Romanian and Transylvanian folklore and the writings of Emily Gerard. This version of Dracula was a true monster, a being brought back from the dead to feast on the blood of humans. Lots of the powers vampires have today originate from the early iterations of Dracula: regeneration, shapeshifting, telepathy, mind control, teleportation, vampirism, along with many others. And of course, you can't forget about the weaknesses, holy objects being the main one. Dracula, among the vampires he inspired, has appeared in various different media ever since his creation. Numerous tabletop and video games, manga and anime, songs, painting, television, and of course, movies. Look at the movie specifically, you can see how vampires have changed their presentation over time. We have The Vampire, 1913, the earliest vampire film. Nosferatu, 1922, vampires being depicted as hideous monsters. Dracula, 1931, was the start of vampires becoming more sexualized, which in turn led to two direct sequels, Dracula's Daughter and The Son of Dracula, all leading up to a very pivotal point for vampires in movies and subsequent media. Terence Fisher's Horror of Dracula, 1958, with the titular characters portrayed by Christopher Lee. Lee's portrayal of vampires is a similar way to Tom Baker's portrayal of the Doctor, has become the face of vampires in movies because of how long he's played the role. Vampires were no longer seen as demonic shadow monsters from the underworld, they were seen as tortured human souls, cursed. Because of this, vampires are brought out of the horror genre and placed into things more of thrillers and comedies. Buffy the Vampire Slayer of 1992 and the series released in 1997 lasting to 2003 is a good example of this. Embrace the Vampire 1995, From Dusk Till Dawn to 1996, Underworld 2003, and Blade 1998, a film said to be the forerunner to how vampires are seen in the media today, all show vampires are being sexualized and funny. At this point, the powers of many sets of vampires have been hindered and strengthened respectively. Vampires are now burned to daylight, they hate garlic and are weak to silver, they need to be invited into people's homes, and their shapeshifting ability has either been limited to just bats or have taken away entirely. However, everything changed with his next film, and I'm pretty sure you already know what it is. Released in 2008, The Twilight Saga basically ruined changed how vampires as well as monsters as a whole are expected to be represented. Vampires and werewolves have been humanized, and this nature has even been spread to other creatures, like zombies. And by far, the most humanized version of the vampire that I've seen is the Twilight-inspired My Baby Series of Vampire, released in 2010, where vampires and humans are nearly indistinguishable. Thank you for watching Plásma Explains the Universe, and you haven't guessed by now, this is not an actual episode of Plásma Explains the Universe, it's a school project. However, if you want to learn how vampires are represented in our media, link to our Wiki page will be down below. The next episode of Plásma Explains the Universe is still in the works and it should be out by the end. It should be out, I honestly can't say. Hopefully sometime soon. Bye.